on Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
You are listening to The Jan Price Show, and I'm very happy to have Dave Karger making a return engagement on the show today. He's the award-winning entertainment journalist who is on TCM, The Today Show, Entertainment Tonight, you name it, Dave's there. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks so much, Jen. Nice to be talking to you.
You too, as always. So we're going to jump right in. Let's jump right into the Oscars because that's a passion of mine. I know it's a passion of yours. And you'll be going on the Today Show, you said, right, to talk about...
This Tuesday, that's right. I'm about to be heading to New York. I'll be on live 8:30 in the morning as they announce the nominations.
How exciting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, there's a number of things I want to talk about. One is, what effect do you think the Golden Globes actually have on the nominations for the Oscars?
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to remember that the Golden Globes, as you know, and the Oscars are voted on by two entirely different groups. There is no overlap whatsoever between the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which votes on the Golden Globes, which is journalists, and the Academy, which votes on the Oscars, which is 6,000 plus professionals working in the film industry. So unlike other awards like the Screen Actors Guild Awards or the British Academy Awards or the Producers Guild, which also come before the Oscar nominations, those awards actually have overlap between their voting bodies and the Oscar voting body. So it's better to look at those to see what might get nominated. Having said that, the Golden Globes can kind of give you an idea of which way the wind is blowing. And one thing I found really interesting about the Golden Globes earlier this month is that if you look at the 5 films or TV shows that won in the main categories, it was Lady Bird, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, The Handmaid's Tale TV show, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel TV comedy, and Big Little Lies for limited series. All 5 of those projects have women in the lead roles. And I think that's a little bit more than a coincidence. I think there's something to that, and it speaks to the moment we're in, it speaks to the climate, and I think it bodes well for movies like The Shape of Water or 3 Billboards or Lady Bird that are female-driven, especially Lady Bird, which was written and directed by a woman, Greta Gerwig.
Do you think, they passed over Greta Gerwig as far as Best Director. Do you think there might be a strong possibility that she'll be nominated for an Oscar?
Yes,
okay.
I do. I think I do think she's in great stead. I think, if you look at the people, there's like 6 or 7 people who are kind of most in the running for the Best Director Oscar nomination. I would say it's Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk,
yes,
Steven Spielberg for Lady Bird, Guillermo del Toro for Shape of Water, Martin McDonagh for 3 Billboards, and then that 5th spot I think is either going to go to Greta Gerwig for Lady Bird or Jordan Peele for Get Out. Mm-hmm. And then you could have a surprise and something maybe Steven Spielberg won't get nominated and then Greta and Jordan Peele will be nominated. But I think those 6, with maybe Luca Guadagnino for Call Me By Your Name a little bit as a 7th place, I think those are the top contenders for Best Director. So I'm pretty bullish on Greta's chances.
Well, and what about Patty Jenkins? There's a lot of talk about Patty Jenkins for Wonder Woman.
And listen, Wonder Woman remains one of the top 3 box office hits. The movie got a Producers Guild nomination for Best Picture, which is a great sign. However, there were 11 nominees for Best Picture for the Producers Guild, and there's probably only going to be 8 or 9 Oscar nominees for Best Picture. So I don't see Wonder Woman getting in there, and I don't see Patty Jenkins getting nominated. I think if there is a female director at the Oscars this year, it's Greta Gerwig.
Now, the Oscars changed it a number of years ago where they can nominate up to 10.
That's right. People who are way smarter than I am have told me that it's near mathematically impossible for there to be 10 with this new voting system.
Okay.
So you're much more likely to get 8 or 9. And we could be surprised and there could be 10, but just the way the balloting system works, I don't want to put your listeners to sleep, but it's really, really hard for there to be 10.
Well, there hasn't been. I mean, I think maybe 1 year. I think maybe the first year they did it or something.
The only time there were 10 nominees, or the only time there were 10 nominees, is when the Academy said there were going to be 10.
Right.
So first they switched it to 10, and there had to be 10. I think that was for 2 or 3 years. And now it's this new system where, depending on the math, it's between 5 and 10. But it's it's very, very likely that every year we're going to see probably 8 or 9.
I really think we should go back to 5.
I agree.
I think, it just makes more sense. It's, everything else is 5. You don't change the other categories. Why that one?
True. I'm a purist. And
Me too.
However, when the Academy Awards started back in 1929, there actually were 10 Best Picture nominees. So the current state is a little bit closer to how it was originally, but I think it was 5 for so long that's how we all grew up with it, right?
Right.
And also I think because, as you say, because all the other categories have 5, you can really look at when there are 8 or 9 or even 10 Best Picture nominees, you can really look at the list and pretty easily figure out what the top 5 are. And the other ones seem like also-rans. And it's just, but this year is different. And the reason I say that is because I really do think there are 6 movies, Dunkirk, The Post, Lady Bird, Get Out, Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards. 6 movies that, on this date, January 20th, could win. And in the 20-plus years that I've been covering the Oscars as a print journalist and now as a host, I've never seen a year where it's this wide open. Usually there's 1, 2, maybe 3 movies that, 6 weeks away from the Oscars seem like they're top contenders. There are 6 right now. That's unheard of, at least from the years I've been looking at it.
Did you have a favorite movie this year?
I did, and it was Detroit, the Catherine Bigelow film that
absolutely
has no traction in the award season whatsoever because nobody bothered to see it, which is a shame. And I wish that Annapurna, the movie company, had put it out in November or December instead of August, because I think it got lost amongst all the blockbusters. And I think people who saw the trailers and commercials thought it looked just too hard to watch, and it was hard to watch, but I thought it was just a terrific movie.
I had not seen it. I'm sorry to have to tell you, I did not see it.
And honestly, nobody has.
Yeah,
and it's a shame. Hopefully they'll watch it on DVD.
I know.
I also love Dunkirk.
Dunkirk, yeah. Dunkirk was one of my favorite movies of the year. I totally loved Dunkirk, and in my movie review, I said it should win for so many different categories for Dunkirk. But my other favorite movie this year was The Shape of Water.
Me too.
Loved
it's so beautiful.
Beautiful.
It's one of a kind. The way it mashes up all of these interesting genres of romance and sci-fi and monster movie and thriller and Cold War. I mean, it's so fascinating, and that performance by Sally Hawkins is just one of the most exquisite things I've ever seen.
I agree. I love her. And did you see her in Maudie?
No, and you're one of several people that have been telling me I need to watch Maudie. I know that's her and Ethan Hawke, and nobody saw it.
Yeah,
I need to see it.
I loved Maudie. I thought it was wonderful. And Ethan Hawke, I thought, was just one of his best performances that he ever. I mean, I really thought he was just wonderful in this movie. And I've never ever been particularly a big Ethan Hawke fan, but he's doing really good work, even more lately. But he's wonderful, and she's brilliant. And she's not getting enough traction. Again, I don't think they're pushing her enough. I think Guillermo del Toro, we can go into the best director, but I think he's the one to beat this year. I think he's got the speed going into it. What's the word? Traction going into it.
He does, and I think, we could very well have another year where this happens more often than not in the last decade, where one movie wins Best Director and another movie wins Best Picture, and that happened last year with Moonlight winning, but then Damien Chazelle for La La Land winning, and I could easily see Guillermo del Toro winning Best Director, but then Dunkirk or 3 Billboards winning Best Picture.
Were you? I don't know. 3 Billboards. I thought was good. What did you think of it? I mean, it was. Were you a little surprised it won so many Golden Globes?
I actually thought Shape of Water was going to win the Golden Globe for Best Picture, and I actually thought Sally Hawkins was going to win. I had a feeling Sam Rockwell would win.
Yes.
Another 3 Billboards win. I love 3 Billboards. I am a little bit surprised that it's winning all of these. It definitely seems like one of the top 5 without a doubt. But the fact that it's winning so many is a bit of a surprise. But it's also important to remember that more often than not in the last 15 years, the movie that wins the Best Picture Oscar did not win the Golden Globe. So over and over again, you're seeing movies that lose at the Golden Globes but then end up winning at the Oscars. So I don't think you can count out any movie that did not win at the Globes.
No, I agree with you. And again, as you said at the top of the show, that it's fewer voters for the Golden Globes than there are obviously for the Oscars, and the Oscars have tried to expand, their voters on, that can actually vote for the nominations. So it's kind of interesting there, too. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You are listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM. And like The Jan Price Show on Facebook. And check out thejanpriceshow.com.
Have you ever dreamed of doing commercials or movies? Your dream starts with a desire. And if you have the desire to do commercials and feature films, we want to know about you. We're Moco Film, one of the Genesis companies that includes VoiceJock, a major provider of TV commercial talent to TV stations throughout the nation. Registering is free. Just go to mocofilm.com and fill out the information. That's MOCOfilm.com. You'll become part of a large talent bank available to producers. Go to mocofilm.com today and start living your dream.
Tired of looking at your worn wood floors? Mr. Sandless can bring them back to life again. That's right, it's Mr. Sandless, the no sanding solution to beautiful wood floors. Mr. Sandless is clean, efficient, contains no harmful chemicals, and is certified green. Mr. Sandless refinishes all hardwoods, softwoods, engineered flooring, and laminates. Most jobs are completed in one day with no cleanup required ever, with virtually no odor, and is safe for pets and kids. No need to move out or even leave the house. Mr. Sandless is the company that invented Sandless Refinishing and is the largest floor refinishing company in the world. Over 120,000 happy customers, guaranteed adhesion, guaranteed satisfaction, and a 5-year warranty. Call Mr. Sandless today at 831-747-7476. That's 747-7476. Or MrSandless.com. That's MrSandless.com.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is award-winning entertainment journalist Dave Karger, and we're talking about the Oscars. Dave, I hate to get into controversy, but we're going to have to get into a little controversy. Let's talk about James Franco's chances of being nominated for Best Oscar this year, for Best Actor Oscar, given the recent allegations that have come out against him, and with this very severe backlash that Hollywood is, having against people who are being accused of sexual harassment. What do you think?
I don't think it helps. And, already he's someone who I would say was kind of on the bubble for Best Actor. If you look at that race, I think there's 4 people who are kind of sure-thing nominees, and that's Timothée Chalamet for Call Me By Your Name, Daniel Day-Lewis for Phantom Thread, Tom Hanks for The Post, and Gary Oldman for Darkest Hour. And then you have this one spot left that James Franco was looking like a decent contender for, along with Daniel Kaluuya, the star of Get Out. And now I think because of this, and this has all been breaking as the Academy ballots are in the voters' hands, so the timing could not be worse. So, I think James Franco was already kind of like a 50-50 shot before these allegations and before this controversy, but I think now you have to just assume that it really helps Daniel Kaluuya, and I wouldn't be surprised if James Franco does not get nominated. Yeah. I think the movie still will get nominated in the screenplay category, but I think that might end up being its only nomination.
Wow. And you don't think Denzel Washington has a chance of being nominated?
I don't. I think in a weaker year, if there weren't so many strong contenders, I think he could get nominated, but that movie is just not at the level of filmmaking as the other ones that are, vying for a nomination in that category, and people aren't even going to see it, really.
Oh, that's too bad. I did get to see that at the Carmel International Film Festival, and actually, it was very interesting. Did you see it?
Roman J. Israel. Yeah, I did see it. I saw an early version that premiered at the Toronto Film Festival, and it actually They actually cut 15 minutes
Right.
out of the movie after that, and so I haven't seen the shorter version.
Yeah.
Maybe I should.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't one of my favorite films.
No, it wasn't one of my favorite films, but Dan Gilroy was there, and he talked about that he had premiered it at Toronto and that they had shortened it. And so when we saw it at the Carmel International Film Festival, it was the shortened version of it. But I thought his performance was very good, as always. He's always great. But I think it's Gary Oldman's year. I really do. He's the one.
I agree, and I'm happy about that.
Me too. I thought he was brilliant performance, brilliant.
Yeah.
And I thought I love the movie too. I said that they should do a double feature. They don't do those anymore, but they should do a double feature of Darkest Hour and then Dunkirk right afterwards.
I know they do cover similar ground, don't they? But in very different ways.
And they're good back-to-back pieces. Of course, when we can get them, on later on demand, we can do that. We can watch them that way. So we talked a little bit about Best Actress. Do you think Frances McDormand is always brilliant in everything she does? Do you think she might edge out Sally Hawkins because she's more well-known and Sally Hawkins is not?
I think I would give Frances McDormand a higher shot at a win right now than Sally Hawkins for the reasons you just mentioned. But I'm also not counting out Saoirse Ronan for Lady Bird. I think she will definitely get nominated on Tuesday. This will be her third nomination, even though she's only 23 years old. She will tie the record for the youngest age to be a three-time Oscar nominee. Jennifer Lawrence was also 23 by the time she got her third nomination. So I think that there's a lot of affection for her and for the movie Lady Bird. So I think this is a three-way race between Sally Hawkins, Fran McDormand, and Saoirse Ronan, and it could go any way.
Interesting. So you don't think a Meryl Streep this time or Jessica Chastain?
I don't. I think Meryl Streep will get nominated, but I think she's got 3 Oscars already. And as terrific as she is as Katharine Graham in The Post, that's not a performance that I think against these other 3 that the voters are going to say she needs a 4th Oscar over Saoirse Ronan getting her first or Frances McDormand getting her second. I just don't see that happening. And then for that 5th spot for the nominations, you mentioned Jessica Chastain for Molly's Game. I think she has a great shot at a nomination. And so does Margot Robbie for playing Tanya Harding in I, Tonya. So I think that 5th spot is between Jessica and Margot.
Do you think the Academy should do something similar to the Golden Globes, where they actually break it out, musical or comedy, and so you have actors and actresses in those kinds of roles that are, not maybe as dramatic all the time, dramatic roles?
Again, I'm a purist, so I think the fewer categories and nominees, the better, because I think it really makes the cream rise to the top. But having said that it is very hard for a great comedic performance to make it in, and that's why over the years it's very exciting to see, let's say, Kevin Kline win Best Supporting Actor for A Fish Called Wanda, or Melissa McCarthy get nominated for Bridesmaids. I was really hoping that Tiffany Haddish, who was so funny in Girls Trip this summer, was going to gain a little bit more traction in the overall race, and it doesn't look like she is. But no, I don't think they should add categories, but I do wish they would be a little bit friendlier to comedic performances.
Well, I agree with that. I agree, because I think comedy's sometimes harder to do than a dramatic role. To make people laugh, I think is very difficult to do. So
it is. Yeah.
So
I agree.
So, okay, we talked a little bit about Best Picture. You think will be Shape of Water?
So I think there's
Billboards?
For the win, that's the thing. Dunkirk, The Post, Lady Bird, Get Out, Shape of Water, 3 Billboards. All 6 of those movies are definite nominees, and they could all win. Call Me By Your Name, I think, is in 7th place. That will be nominated. And then the question to me is, will there be 8 or 9 nominees? And so if there's 8, I think The Big Sick gets nominated. If there's 9, I think The Big Sick gets in, and then maybe the 9th one is something like Darkest Hour or The Florida Project or maybe Wonder Woman. But I think those are the ones that really have the shot at the Best Picture nominations. And then for the win, it's a 6-way race, and that's what's so exciting about it.
Do you think Timothée Chalamet would have a better chance of winning if they put him in a supporting category rather than Best Actor?
I do. But then who would be the lead? Armie Hammer? The thing is...
not Armie, no. But
yeah, the question, there has to be a lead. And it really is Elio's, Timothy Chalamet's character's story in a way. And I have heard people kind of grousing at the fact that Armie Hammer is being campaigned and supporting. A lot of people think that the two of them are leads, which I understand. I mean, but I think you really see the story and experience the story through the eyes of the younger character, and that's Timothy Chalamet. So I think they're doing the right thing by putting him in lead. And what's interesting is when he gets nominated, and I say when because he's such a sure thing nominee on Tuesday, he will be the youngest Best Actor nominee in almost 80 years. And he's 22 years old. It's not like he's 13. He's 22, but there has not been a nominee in that category that young in almost 80 years, like Mickey Rooney or something.
Wow.
So it's interesting because the other three acting categories have young people in them all the time, particularly supporting actress and supporting actor. But then you've had a couple teenage and younger. Quvenzhané Wallis for Beasts of the Southern Wild, she was nominated for Best Actress. She was like 8. So there's been young nominees in the other three categories, but for whatever reason, it's very hard to be nominated in Best Actor as a young man. And I think Adrian Brody is the youngest winner in that category, and he was 29 when he won.
Yeah.
So there's something about that category that really skews older, so it's going to be very exciting to see a 22-year-old in there.
It will be interesting. Yeah, it will be exciting. What about Best Supporting Actor?
So I think you have a couple of slots that are locked up. I mean, Willem Dafoe for The Florida Project, Sam Rockwell for Three Billboards. The two of them are in the lead. I think Richard Jenkins, who was so terrific and moving in The Shape of Water, he'll be nominated. And then I'm pretty bullish on Christopher Plummer for this last-minute role replacing Kevin Spacey in All the Money in the World. So that leaves one. He's great. That leaves one spot, which I think is going to either go to Armie Hammer for Call Me by Your Name, or Woody Harrelson, also for Three Billboards, has really been kind of swept up in a very good way with all of the acclaim and momentum for Three Billboards. And even though Sam Rockwell will get more votes, and Sam Rockwell has a better shot at a win, I think Woody Harrelson could benefit from all of the love and support for that movie and get in there as well.
But don't you know, in the history of the Oscars, usually when they nominate two actors or two actresses from a film, and sometimes they have nominated 3, I think, that
right.
It dilutes the voting, and none of them win. I've never really. Maybe you know more than I do, or can remember that. You know, when 2 actors are nominated from a film, do either one of them win? Usually,
there's definitely a danger of vote splitting. You're exactly right. I think in this case, however, Sam Rockwell, and I'm not going to ruin anything, but Sam Rockwell has a much bigger part than Woody Harrelson in Three Billboards. So people who have seen the movie know exactly what I'm talking about. And I think I don't think Sam Rockwell is going to lose a lot of votes to Woody Harrelson. I think people who love that movie are going to vote for Sam Rockwell if the two of them both get nominated. So, but it would be indicative of tremendous support for the movie if they both get in there.
It would be very interesting. And let's go back to Christopher Plummer, because I absolutely love Ridley Scott for what he did, and it just shows, you know, what someone, I talked about this with Ben too, but you know, what somebody, you know, when you get professionals who know what they're doing, that he was able to do that so quickly. And
it's unbelievable.
It is. I mean, the story behind the story is more fascinating than the movie's very good, and I really loved it. But Christopher Plummer's performance is the movie.
It's true, and I actually was fortunate enough to interview Ridley Scott and Christopher Plummer and Michelle Williams in front of the Academy.
Oh, wow.
A couple of weeks ago, and Ridley said that 4 days after they wrapped, they were showing the movie to the Golden Globe voters. 4 days. And what they were doing is every day they would shoot, they would send the footage back to the editor, and the editor would be cutting it all on a daily basis and inserting the new scenes into the existing film. And they really did it almost like shot for shot the way they had done it with Kevin Spacey. So it was easy to insert all the scenes and shots. But when I saw the movie, you know, I think they kind of pulled a fast one on a lot of us in the media. Sony did, because they kept saying, oh, Kevin Spacey's just a small role, it's just a couple scenes, it'll be easy to reshoot. And then you sit down and watch the movie and you realize, Christopher, as you say, he is the movie. I think they shot 22 scenes over. And you realize how big of a role it was and what a massive undertaking it was and how phenomenally impressive it is that they finished it so soon. And I think the movie probably was better because of it.
I agree, and I love Kevin Spacey, and I'm sad about all of this that's going on, but I think that Christopher Plummer was the better choice. Actually, he
I
was
agree.
closer in age and looks and
Less makeup,
everything,
yeah.
less makeup, and again, professionals, they can just go in and just do it. I love it because Ridley Scott is 80 and Christopher Plummer's 88. So it also just gives everybody, like, just because you get older, that you don't have to, stop doing what you love and you're passionate about. Ridley Scott's moving, he's going to continue directing until he dies. And I think Christopher Plummer will continue to act until he can. Until he
I
dies.
know it.
So it's
Yes.
inspiring. It's inspiring. I hope they do I hope somebody was doing a documentary behind the scenes about this.
Oh my God, that would be great.
Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah.
I hope somebody was smart enough to do something like that. I would definitely watch that, of how they went about and did it all.
Me too.
It's exciting. So let's talk. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Best Supporting Actress. You are listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies, on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM, and like the Jan Price Show on Facebook, and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
Do you have difficulty falling or staying asleep? Do you suffer from snoring, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, or other sleep disorders? If so, we can help. Call Monterey Bay Sleep Center and arrange a sleep study in one of our luxury suites. We specialize in diagnosing and treating sleep disorders so you can regain your quality of life. Our luxury suites feature hotel-quality beds and flat-panel TVs so that you feel most comfortable during your stay. Call us today to arrange a sleep study at our secure facility in Monterey.
Call 831-920-1411. That's 831-920-1411.
The Ozio Theater in downtown Monterey is now open every day, showing independent and foreign films. The Ozio Theater has new concession offerings, including beer, wine, hard cider, and their homemade Lush Slush. You can now schedule private event screenings for community charity events, birthdays, anniversaries, or just a fun gathering of friends. For more information, visit the Ozio Theater online at oziotheater.com.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is award-winning entertainment journalist Dave Karger. So, Dave, Best Supporting Actress, who do you think will be nominated?
Well, like all the other categories, you have the locks, and that's Laurie Metcalf for Lady Bird, Allison Janney for I, Tonya, and Holly Hunter for The Big Sick. So those three spots are taken. And then you have about 3 or 4 women fighting for the last 2. And I think Octavia Spencer will be nominated again, deservedly so, for The Shape of Water. She's just so great as Sally Hawkins' best friend and co-worker. And then I do think Mary J. Blige for the movie Mudbound will probably get nominated. And another woman who's been getting a lot of nominations leading up to the Oscars is Hong Chow, the co-star of Downsizing, which is one of my personal favorite movies, but everybody else seems to hate it.
I loved it, too. I'm glad to hear you say that. We'll talk about that a little bit.
But even people who don't love the movie seem to enjoy her performance. But I think that movie is just fading, and I think she could be a casualty of the movie's overall lack of support. So if Mary J. Blige gets in there, I think it's at the expense of Hong Chow.
Which is too bad, because her performance really was just absolutely wonderful in the movie. I had Kevin Tent on my show, and Kevin does all of the editing for Alexander Payne. And he had his first movie that it didn't premiere, but it was at the Carmel International Film Festival, and called Crash Pad, with Domhnall Gleeson and Thomas Hayden Church, and it was hysterical. It was just hysterical. I loved the movie. But we talked about Downsizing, and I saw it in Toronto, and I loved it. I thought it had a great message. I thought it was cute. I thought it was well done. It was entertaining. It was funny. It had all kinds of everything, and it had a touch. It was heartwarming too. At the same time, and all of those wonderful aspects in the film, and I was surprised it didn't do so well. Are they just expecting something different from Alexander Payne each time?
Well, and I also think Downsizing is the classic example right now of a victim of today's what I call kind of a Rotten Tomatoes culture, where no one really reads movie criticism anymore to read the nuances of what a critic feels about a movie. All they look at is, the Rotten Tomatoes score and which percentage of the reviews were positive and which were negative. And I think a movie like Downsizing that really swings for the fences runs the risk of turning off some critics and thereby getting a lower Rotten Tomatoes score than a movie that just plays it safe and then everyone gives it an okay review, but an okay review comes across as a positive on Rotten Tomatoes. So you can have a 95 score, but everyone just thinks your movie is okay. Whereas if you do something like Downsizing and half the world thinks it's phenomenal and the other half the world is thinking, I didn't really get it, well, that's a 50 score on Rotten Tomatoes. So people go, the movie must be awful, I don't want to go see it. So I think that's the problem with the kind of state of the movie criticism world right now, is that it really penalizes movies that are more ambitious, that aren't everyone's cup of tea. But I would encourage everyone to go see Downsizing, and a lot of people, I'm sure, will tweet me and say, why did you tell me to see that movie? It was awful. But I think enough people will say, wow, I'm so glad that I listened to you, because it's a movie that made me howl with laughter, but then it also really made me quite emotional by the end.
Yes.
It does have uplift as well, but it also really depressed me too. So I think it made me feel this whirlwind of emotions, and I think that's what the best movies do.
Exactly, and that's what I always say. You want to go to the movies to be moved. When I studied film a long time ago, our professor said, do not read reviews, and I don't read reviews before I go see a movie. It's hard when you go to click on what movies are showing at the movie theater, and they have the Rotten Tomatoes right up there now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to go search for it anymore. It's up there, and that's discouraging. And so I go on a one-man bandwagon sometimes, going, you got to go see this movie, and let people know that this is a good movie, despite what the Rotten Tomatoes may say. What I like to read afterwards, because I'll go read the reviews after I've seen the film to see what other people thought of it, and I like to go to read what the viewers think.
Yeah.
And they're more in alignment with what I think. So, which is interesting, most of the time. And most of the times when, Rotten Tomatoes gives it a terrible score, or if it gives it a good score, I'm going to probably, you and I will probably have a disagreement about this, but I was not a fan of Call Me By Your Name. And I'm one of those people that was not a fan. And I felt it was rather slow, and I was starting to fall asleep through the movie, which I don't usually do. And I was losing my attention span on it. I'm sorry, I didn't feel the chemistry between Armie Hammer and Timothy. I thought Timothy Chalamet did a wonderful job. I really did. And I've gone and seen seen him speak and Armie Hammer speak and Luca, at a couple at Toronto and again at Napa Film Festival. And I'm sure you loved it. I know a lot of people did, but I was kind of, no, I don't.
Yeah, to me, it's just transporting and a beautiful love story, and I appreciate that it didn't feel the need to invent some kind of forced drama. It was just a portrait of young love, and to me, it worked on that level. But I hear everything that you're saying. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Armie Hammer. I like him, but I just felt that Timothy was, I felt like Armie wasn't really there 100% all the time. I felt there was a hesitancy in a little way. I mean, I was really feeling that, and so that came through for me in the performance. And then everybody talks about the money scene with Michael Stolman, who plays the father of Timothy Chalamet's character, and I don't want to give anything away, but a lot of people were, I liked that scene. I thought that was one of the better scenes of the movie.
Well, Michael Stuhlbarg is just on a roll. He's in so many of the big movies this year, or the last several years, and he was talked about for nominations just off that one scene, this one speech that you're talking about alone. Yes. I think some people have overtaken him, but he's such a great character actor.
He is, and he's in The Shape of Water too. Yeah. And he does a wonderful job in that too. And and that scene, I did have tears in my eyes, and we all feel like we would like our parents to talk to us about, the same way he did and understand us. That was beautiful. So, all right, well, let's move on and talk a little bit about anything else. Do you want to talk about the Oscars?
No, you've hit all the main categories and all the big stories.
All right. About music? Score?
Well, I'm a huge fan of the Alexandre Desplat score from The Shape of Water. He won the Golden Globe, and I think rightly so. And then as a big kind of pop music fan, I'm very intrigued by the Best Song category, and there's two songs that are, for me, at the forefront. One is the song "This Is Me" from The Greatest Showman,
Yes.
the Hugh Jackman musical, and it's the same guys that did the La La Land and
Right.
Dear Evan Hansen music, and they won last year for La La Land. Anyway, that song "This Is Me" I think is great, but I also love the song that Andra Day and Common perform from the movie Marshall, written by Diane Warren, who's like an 8-time Oscar nominee. It's called "Stand Up for Something." They've been doing a lot of appearances for it, but it's this great kind of 60s throwback R&B anthem that I think will be nominated for an Oscar, and that will be 9 nominations for Diane Warren, which she's never won. So that's a song I would encourage people to listen out for. It's terrific.
Yes, yeah. And Marshall was another wonderful movie, I thought, too. I really enjoyed Marshall.
I didn't love the movie.
You didn't? Oh, I
At all.
did. I did.
I wanted to. I felt like Thurgood Marshall deserved a way better movie than that, but I did love the closing credits because I love that song.
There you go. Well, I also think Dunkirk. I loved Dunkirk. The score,
music,
the
sure.
music, the score to Dunkirk, and yeah,
I
it's
agree.
very good. So, well, let's talk about 31 days. Let's continue with our Oscar theme here and talk about 31 days of Oscar on Turner Classic Movies coming up February 1st.
Yeah, so I know you had Ben Mankiewicz on your show very recently, so I am extremely honored to be co-hosting the month of February along with Ben. So I'm the host for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings, as well as Saturday afternoons for the month of February. So it's 17 days in all that I'll be hosting for the 31 days, and I'm so thrilled. I did it last year as well. I'm such an Oscar nerd that I just love this month of programming, and the programmers at TCM did a fantastic job. Last year, it was Oscar-nominated films alphabetically throughout the entire month. This year, as I'm sure Ben told you, each day is a different category. So it's just really fun to kind of explore nominees and winners in these categories, from huge categories like Best Picture and Best Actress to cinematography and visual effects and editing, and really get to appreciate what these people did to earn these Oscars and these nominations.
Now, I agree. I love the way they're doing this this year. They're starting off with Best Original Song winners and nominees through the day, and then, as Ben said, in the evening, they will have the Best Original Song winners,
Right.
starting in prime time. And I love the way they're breaking, out the different categories this year. I think it's wonderful. But they've got some really premieres this year that they've never had, and more current movies that they're going to be showing, and I thought that was rather exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more familiar, obviously, with the days that I'm hosting, and the range of movies is fascinating. I mean, just in the days that I'm presenting, it's super well-known Best Picture winners like Cabaret and Giant and All the President's Men and On the Waterfront, and East of Eden, which was part of our Supporting Actress Day. And then there were films that, I feel like you don't get to see very often, like Cactus Flower, where Goldie Hawn won her Best Supporting Actress Oscar, or Woodstock. There's a night of documentaries that I'm hosting, and we're showing the 3-hour-long Woodstock documentary, which is great. And then there were a couple films that I wasn't even familiar with. There's a movie that I'm introducing called The Search, and it's Montgomery Clift's first movie. And it's this really interesting kind of war drama where he looks after a young boy who has been separated from his family after World War II. And this was his first ever nomination. It was the first movie he really had, and I had never even heard of this film, but it's a really emotionally affecting film, so I was happy to watch that. And then other ones that I really love are like The Best Years of Our Lives is on one of my days, The Red Shoes. And then you mentioned kind of more recent movies. I do have a couple films from more recent decades, and one of the movies that I'm showing as part of Visual Effects Night is Cocoon, directed by Ron Howard with Don Amici and Hume Cronin. It's just delightful.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it. We'll talk some more about the 31 Days of Oscar when we come back from this quick commercial break. You are listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies on Bauer Talk 1460 and 101 FM. And like The Jan Price Show on Facebook, and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
Tired of looking at your worn wood floors? Mr. Sandless can bring them back to life again. That's right, it's Mr. Sandless, the no sanding solution to beautiful wood floors. Mr. Sandless is clean, efficient, contains no harmful chemicals, and is certified green. Mr. Sandless refinishes all hardwoods, softwoods, engineered flooring, and laminates. Most jobs are completed in one day with no cleanup required ever, with virtually no odor, and is safe for pets and kids. No need to move out or even leave the house. Mr. Sandless is the company that invented Sandless Refinishing and is the largest floor refinishing company in the world. Over 120,000 happy customers, guaranteed adhesion, guaranteed satisfaction, and a 5-year warranty. Call Mr. Sandless today at 831-747-7476. That's 747-7476. Or MrSandless.com. That's MrSandless.com.
Have you ever dreamed of doing commercials or movies? Your dream starts with a desire. And if you have the desire to do commercials and feature films, we want to know about you. We're Moco Film, one of the Genesis companies that includes VoiceJock, a major provider of TV commercial talent to TV stations throughout the nation. Registering is free. Just go to mocofilm.com and fill out the information. That's MOCOfilm.com. You'll become part of a large talent bank available to producers. Go to mocofilm.com today and start living your dream.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is award-winning entertainment journalist Dave Karger, and we're talking about everything to do with Oscars today. So, Dave, what other movies are you going to be introducing that were a surprise for you?
Well, as part of this special effects night where I mentioned Cocoon is there and Logan's Run as well, we kick it off with 2001, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary
Hard
this
to
year.
believe,
And
isn't
when
it?
you look at it, you watch that movie and it feels like it could have been made this year. It's just jaw-dropping. So I'm happy that that's in there as well. I'm going to correct what I just said because I listed off Best Picture winners that we're showing, and I said Cabaret and Giant. Those two are Best Director winners that actually lost Best Picture, which was kind of a surprise. But yeah, by the end of the month is when we really get full into all of the really great Best Picture winners. So I'm introducing Grand Hotel, Mrs. Miniver, Best Years of Our Lives, On the Waterfront, All the King's Men, Hamlet. I mean, it's Bridge on the River Kwai, Patton. It just goes on, and as the month goes on, it gets more and more exciting with all of these winners in the Best Picture race. But then also there's some great foreign films in there too. I'm showing Mon Oncle, great Jacques Tati. I'm showing a movie called Antonia's Line, which is a really terrific feminist drama from the mid-'90s that won Best Foreign Film. So there's a lot of really great different kind of movies that aren't as obvious choices as some of the really big Best Picture winners later in the month. Which
makes it exciting when they're mixing it up a little bit, and these are things that they don't normally show on Turner Classic Movies. So that makes it real interesting and fascinating, and reasons to tune in, everyone, and watch the 31 Days of Oscar. You mentioned the search with Montgomery Clift. What category is that going to be shown in?
So that is part of a Best Actor Day. So that's going to show, so that's during the day. So as Ben mentioned, we show nominees during the day, and then when it gets to prime time, it's night. So on that Saturday afternoon, which is the 24th of February, I'm showing Lust for Life, where Kirk Douglas plays Vincent Van Gogh, and then Bad Day at Black Rock, which Spencer Tracy was nominated for, and then The Search with Montgomery Clift as part of that day, and then also My Favorite Year, which Peter O'Toole was nominated for. So that's an afternoon of 4 Best Actor nominees, and then later that night in prime time is when it goes into, Ben will introduce some Best Actor winners.
And that's the night they'll have There Will Be Blood with Daniel Day-Lewis.
I love that.
I do too.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, and that's only 2007. I mean, and you've got Dead Man Walking with Susan Sarandon. Very excited about that. Blue Sky, Jessica Lange. Some real interesting movies.
And I think it's great. I'm okay with there being some more recent ones in there. One of the ones that I'm introducing is An Inconvenient Truth on documentary
yes.
night.
Uh-huh.
And that's pretty recent, but
Yes.
but that's a classic film and one that if people haven't seen, they definitely should check out, particularly now.
Well, there is that discussion. I mean, I do like turning into Turner Classic Movies to watch the older movies, obviously, but there's only so many of them, that you can show after a while. And so it's good to, it's good to have. That's why I like the Summer Under the Stars. I enjoy that too, as much as I love the 31 Days of Oscar. So I think, again, it goes back to what makes a movie a classic. But if you've won an Oscar, that's a classic. I think eventually,
Right.
Whether is it a time limit or is it just that the movie itself was classic in what it did in that moment of time when the movie came out, that kind of thing too. There's so many ways you can categorize what a classic is, So
Exactly, and we're showing hundreds of movies per month, so I think there's definitely a little bit of room for some more recent films as well.
Oh, I agree, and I said this to Ben. I think I know there's a change in the programming. I sense there's a change going on in the programming. Since that's all I watch. It's all I do watch. I don't have time I go to the movies and then I watch Turner Classic Movies, and so I noticed that there are a lot newer things coming in and different kinds of genres than they've used to show as much as so it's kind of interesting. It's to see it be mixed up a little bit. I love the fact they're doing documentaries. Go ahead.
I agree, and the other thing that's fun is that because it's by category, we in the intros and the outros that Ben and I do, we can focus on different things. So, for instance, on Supporting Actress Day, that's when I'm showing East of Eden. So the movie is, of course, the same movie, but in the intro and the outro, I'm really focusing on Joe Van Fleet as opposed to James Dean. So in kind of mixing this up and separating it by category allows us to do new things and give new information in the intros, which makes it more fun for me to do as a host, and hopefully makes it more interesting for the viewer as well.
Well, that's why I love Turner Classic Movies, because it's a piece of Hollywood history every time you go see a film, and because you have such a crackerjack research team at Turner Classic Movies, and they do just a magnificent job of of curating, and actually when they do show those movies again, what I get. And I think we've talked about this. I really prefer to watch the movies when they have the introduction, and during the day they really don't do the introduction. So sometimes they'll show a movie during the day, and then later on it might be in prime time and there will be an introduction. So I prefer watching it when there's an introduction rather than when there isn't, because I want to learn more about the movie going into it. And then I love the outros too, because you add more pieces of the of information for the viewer to appreciate the film a little bit more.
Absolutely, and it's just fun to see which pair of glasses Ben is going to wear.
Does he change his glasses?
Oh, he has like 10 or 12 different pairs.
Oh, I never even noticed that. There you go.
Oh, I definitely have my favorites.
Oh, yeah. You do? Okay.
Yeah, he mixes it up. You got to keep it interesting.
Okay. I like his quirky, comments. I told him his wry, dry sense of humor is what I love when he just sort of seems like he's throwing something in.
Absolutely. That's my favorite part about his intros too. He's very clever.
Yeah, very, very. So, anything else you want to talk about 31 Days of Oscar?
Well, that's really it. I mean, you've touched on all the big points, but it's just, it's a wealth of fascinating films, and as I say, it's ones that ones that you've heard of but maybe haven't seen, and then I swear there's ones that you've never heard of too, and that's what's going to make it really fun, I think, for people to discover a lot of these and also revisit all of their favorite ones.
Yeah, one of the movies for Best Actor winners, Harry and Tonto. How often do we see that movie? It's not, it's
right,
not
Art Carney, right?
I think so.
Yeah, right. And that's great. There was a movie that I wasn't familiar with called Separate Table, where
yes.
Wendy Hiller won the Best Supporting Actress. And it is just my perfect kind of movie because it's like big ensemble drama, and it just fell right in. David Niven was great.
I love it. Yeah.
Just adored it. So
David
that's
Niven.
the joy for me. Oh, yeah. And the fun for me with this job is to discover some of the ones that I'm not 100% familiar with yet either, and learn about them and fall in love with them just like the audience does.
So when you are going to do this, and you, Now, I've heard, you get volumes of information sent to you about what you're going to introduce, correct?
Yes.
And do you write your own introduction? Do you disseminate it and put it into your own words and write yours eventually?
It's very collaborative. So they have producers and writers who send us, initial script, and we also get research packets and everything. And that way, we're able to go, as hosts, we're able to go through and edit and change things and delete things and add things that we'd rather do. I mean, I prefer to keep my intros to the bare minimum as far as plot of the movie. I don't feel like I want to describe a lot of the plot of a movie that someone's about to see.
Right.
I would much rather tell more of a behind-the-scenes story about the making of it or the reception of it or something like that. So I try to, whenever I can, to try to maneuver the scripts around to make it more like that. But as you say, yes, the TCM staff is unbelievable and so knowledgeable, and from the programmers to the researchers to the writers to the producers and directors, they make us all look really good.
They do, and you all do such a good job. We're going to be right back after these brief messages. You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM, and like the Jan Price Show on Facebook, and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
Do you have difficulty falling or staying asleep? Do you suffer from snoring, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, or other sleep disorders? If so, we can help. Call Monterey Bay Sleep Center and arrange a sleep study in one of our luxury suites. We specialize in diagnosing and treating sleep disorders so you can regain your quality of life. Our luxury suites feature hotel-quality beds and flat-panel TVs so that you feel most comfortable during your stay. Call us today to arrange a sleep study at our secure facility in Monterey.
Call 831-920-1411. That's 831-920-1411.
The Ozio Theater in downtown Monterey is now open every day, showing independent and foreign films. The Ozio Theater has new concession offerings, including beer, wine, hard cider, and their homemade Lush Slush. You can now schedule private event screenings for community charity events, birthdays, anniversaries, or just a fun gathering of friends. For more information, visit the Ozio Theater online at oziotheater.com.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is award-winning entertainment journalist Dave Karger. And Dave, we just have a few more minutes, so I want to just quickly talk about the Virtuoso Awards at the Santa Barbara Film Festival. Tell us a little bit about the history behind it and some of the people that you're going to be honoring this year.
So every year at the Santa Barbara Film Festival, which is the first week of February in Santa Barbara, there are a whole bunch of celebrity tributes. This year, Gary Oldman is getting a tribute. Willem Dafoe is getting a career tribute. But I host a night every year, this is my 8th year doing it, called the Virtuosos. So it's a group of performers who have had breakout performances that year. They might not be around long enough to have an entire night devoted to them, but they've had a fantastic breakout performance. So in years past, we've had everybody from J.K. Simmons from Whiplash and Jared Leto for Dallas Buyers Club, Dev Patel for Lion. We've had such an amazing lineup over the years that I've been doing it, and we have 7 incredible people from Mary J. Blige and Timothée Chalamet, Hong Chow, Gal Gadot from Wonder Woman, Daniel Kaluuya, the star of Get Out, and Kumail Nanjiani from The Big Sick, and as well as John Boyega, Star Wars, but the reason we're doing him is for Detroit, which, as we talked about, is my favorite film. So I get to interview all these 7 breakout stars one by one. We show clips from their movies, and then I bring them all out together for a group interview. And it's just a really great night. It's on February 3rd, which is a Saturday night if anyone happens to be in the Santa Barbara area. The tickets are available, and it's a really terrific night over Super Bowl weekend to celebrate some terrific performers.
It's one of my favorite evenings at the Santa Barbara Film Festival. I love the Santa Barbara Film Festival, but it is one of my favorites for exactly that reason, because these are up-and-coming actors and actresses, and it's nice to learn more about them on a deeper level, and you do such a good job of interviewing them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No, I mean that. I'm not just saying because you're on my show. I fell in love with you first doing that, and then I wanted you on my show. So
it's super fun to put together. So along with the head of the festival, this man Roger Durling, who I know you know,
yes,
we put this list together, but we put it together like in October and November. So in a way, we have to kind of guess who some of the people are that are going to be in the awards race. So it's been really exciting to see, Timothy Chalamet, Mary J. Blige, Daniel Kaluuya, Kumail Nanjiani, all of these people who we picked months ago now getting, huge nominations, and a lot of them are going to be Oscar nominated too.
It's exciting. It's exciting. Thank you, Dave, for being on the show. Our time is up. I could talk to you for hours and hours. We'll have you back on the show again very, very soon. You've been listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM, and like The Jan Price Show on Facebook, and check out thejanpriceshow.com.